Today for Hurricane Preparedness Week, we're talking about developing an evacuation plan. Joining us is Maria Lutz with the American Red Cross. Maria, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
For the National Hurricane Preparedness Week, it talks a lot about evacuation routes and, from the mainland focus of, hey, we have to leave the state, let's drive someplace else, which obviously doesn't apply here. But we still have to have an evacuation plan. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Being on an island, it's a different kind of thing, right? Evacuation is, you can't really get far enough away from the storm that's approaching, right? So you're kind of looking at it differently. So you'll be looking at your neighborhood, seeing where you live. Are you in a flood zone? Are you in a potential storm surge zone, or in a high wind area? And that's really the criteria that you would be looking for to see, is it safe for you to stay in your home, right?
Is it safe or should you go? And what are some things that people should think about if it's not safe? Where should they think about going?
Well, I would say take a step backwards and look at, do you have an interior room in your house that could be hardened? Is there any way that you could stay at home and ride out the storm? Because that's probably going to be the most preferable way to handle a hurricane, right? With so much uncertainty, and just to have all of your things there with you at home, that would be ideal. But I realize that that's not possible for everybody, right? We all have different kinds of homes and different conditions, and so you have to make that calculation of where, should you really shelter in place, or do you actually need to leave your home?
If you look at your house and you decide it's not safe and it can't be retrofitted, should people, what are some thoughts about where they could go? Office building, a neighbor's house, family members?
Is there a house in the neighborhood that is more strongly built where people could gather? That's a possibility. Even, like looking at your own home and just seeing, like, is there an interior room that is well protected from the wind? And again, if you're not in a flood zone, is that a safe place to ride out the storm? Again, if you're at home, you probably have all the comforts of home there. You probably feel more secure. It's easier to keep your pets with you and other things, right? So it is more ideal if you can stay at home.
I think sometimes when people hear evacuate, they think of an evacuation shelter. But the shelters we have aren't really a shelter. It's a refuge of last resort, really. Right? Can you talk a little bit about the amenities that would be available there, or the lack of?
Sure, yeah. So when we open hurricane evacuation shelters here in Hawaii, it's not like it is on the mainland, right? And part of that is just because we're so isolated, right? And so we don't have as many supplies that we can bring to the shelters in time. And there usually isn't going to be backup electricity, so don't depend on that, or don't have that expectation that there would be electricity at the shelter. We also might run into a situation where there wouldn't be any running water in the shelter too, right, if there's electricity outages. So again, it would be kind of roughing it. You would have to bring your stuff with you, and you would also be asked to bring food with you, food and water, because those are the essentials, and of course any medication that you're dependent upon.
Great, thank you. When considering your evacuation plan, keep that in mind. Whether is it better to stay at home, harden your house, and we'll talk about that later this week. And if not, other options that you have, family members, friends that you could stay with. And keep in mind that if you will evacuate to a shelter, you'll need to bring all your supplies with you. Join us, keep coming back for more information during Hurricane Preparedness Week. Thanks for listening.